Hello, I am back here to annoy you with an additional video about the Masters of the Universe Classics, except this time I will try and cover some of the bad guys I have. Two different factions in this case. I'll start with the Snakemen, which is this bunch right here. I don't have the complete series of them, I'm still lacking two, but I'm close of having the complete set. Anyway, let's start with the leader here. This guy is called the King Hiss. He's the leader of the supreme leader of all the Snakemen. He appears human, but of course you have a feature to remove these pieces, at least with the vintage toy where he also appeared. That was the feature. Now here the idea is slightly different. You don't remove any body pieces, you just literally remove the whole upper torso and then you put the snake one on top. Now the snake one I keep in a box because I kinda prefer the human version more, looks more menacing. He comes with two weapons. He comes with a snake staff, which most of the snake warriors do carry, and with the Snakeman shield. Now one would assume that he really is the main commander, but it seems that he's taking orders from somebody a little bit above him. A character that was invented for the purpose of the new toy line, meaning the classics. And that would be this weird looking little guy. Now the first thing that comes to mind, wait a minute, that's just Orko who went insane. Well, actually no, this is not Orko. Although this guy, according to the story, he also comes from Trolla. And I don't think he's familiar with all Orko. Now, nevertheless, the problem with this guy is that he's evil. And he used his dark magic to just try and create some servants of his own, to try and conquer Eternia and any other known worlds. So he ended up recruiting all the Snakemen and their king and all that to fight under him. And then he was defeated in one battle, in which case the king he still continued the fight even without the wizard being present. Now I will show you just, by the way, this figure was an exclusive to a subscription holders only. And I'll show you the difference in size and looks between him and Orko. Orko is much smaller. And by the way, also his name, the wizard's name, is Nameless One. So in other words, it seems nobody knows what his real name is. He came with an extra head, which was still a Trollan head, but a little bit more nastier with a metal helmet. As you can tell, they have very similar wands, both of them. The only difference is the size. So anyway, they both come from Trolla. Orko is on the side of the good and the other one is on the side of the bad guys. So that's as far as this fellow goes. I guess the main leader of the clan. And now we're going to see some of the warriors that serve under King Hiss, because there are some known ones to all the fans out there. Let's start with Cobra Khan here. His name is Cobra Khan for obvious reasons. He looks like a cobra snake. He comes with an exchangeable head that doesn't have the side skin. It just has the head itself. Now he comes with a laser gun and with a small little lizard guy who is like a pet of his that would be put on the shoulder. But the main action feature when this figure came out in the vintage toy line is to remove the head, pour some water into the body, put the head back in, and then when you press the head down, he would squirt water out of his mouth. And it would act kind of like a snake poison and stuff like that. But unfortunately, Mattel decided in the classics version not to put that action feature in. So all you really get is exchangeable heads. And that's about it. In the hierarchy of the Snakemen, he would be considered sort of a general or an advisor to King Hiss. And also, in regards to him, in some interpretations he used to serve Skeletor first, and then switched his allegiance to King Hiss. So he's a sort of a double agent, it seems. This fellow is one of the most known warriors in the Snake clan, and his name is Snakeface. And I think he was modeled very much so according to the Greek mythology, or Medusa, the creature who was able to turn you into stone just by looking at you with her hair and eyes made of snakes. Well, this fellow has that same idea. He's like a male version of Medusa, so he would be able to turn you into stone just by looking at you. The snakes would come out of his chest, eyes and mouth, and if you happen to glance upon them, you will turn into a stone permanently. And in the hierarchy, he's more like a legendary warrior as far as the Snakeman goes. Now this snake here does not even belong to the classics. It was never made by the classics, but it was made for Mattel, by Mattel, for the toy line that was supposed to be based on Harry Potter movies. And the reason why I got it is because she blends very nicely with the vintage or the classic Snakeman. And the best part is she's electronic as well, so that's an added bonus. So I'll show you what I mean. When you pull the switch below the body, she's hissing and her eyes glow nasty green color. Now what happens is when I pull the tail down, that's the best part. Just watch closely. She will make a nasty sound and try to swallow you whole. So that's why I think it fits very nicely with the... I like to blend in some creatures from other toy lines if they fit with He-Man. And I'll put her right here among the Snakemen so you guys can see for yourselves. She's much taller and bigger than the rest of the Snakemen, but she fits just nicely because in the 2000 cartoon series, King Hiss would always have a nasty giant snake following him around. So this one would, I think, fit that idea very well. I just wish I could have found more of these snakes, but they're pretty much out of production at this time. And then we go to the main general of King Hiss's armies of Snakemen. This here is Rattler, or General Rattler as he's known. He's pretty much modeled after a rattlesnake. His tail gives it away. And the vintage toy of the same character used to have little pebbles inside the body so that when you shake him you hear the rattle pretty much. Now that feature was taken out for the classics due to the costs, so the only thing he does still have, he has an extension for his neck that you can make it that his head is literally popping out on a very long neck, kind of like for a quick strike attack. His weapon is again typical snake stuff, and in the pyramid or in the army of the snakes he is obviously, like I said, carrying the status of a general. And this fellow Cobra Khan seems to be in a constant argument with him and they cannot stand each other. So now some of the actual snake warriors that were sold in 2-packs, 2 different ones with different accessories and armor and the color schemes. This is how they would be packed with all these that you see them with. You would be able to interchange their weapons. They also came with some spears and a shield, and they would come 2 in a pack. And if you wanted to, these would be perfect for army building, so that's exactly what some people did, including myself. But in my case, all I really did is get 2 packages, so I ended up with 4. And that's as far as I went. Now, this is how they look like with their spears and the snake shields. They are ideal for your dioramas if you want to kick some major butt out there. So army builders are always good to have. The only ones I missed upon are the Hoarder troopers, which are utterly impossible for me to get at this time because they just cost so much money. But anyway, that's life. You win some, you lose some, right? Now, that's all I got from the Snakeman. I'm still lacking 2 characters, Tongue Lasher and Squeeze. And I'm waiting for better times when I'm hopefully be able to get him at a decent price. But I will show you another set of the bad guys, very known ones, from a different clan. And that would be the Evil Horde. That is led by this guy right here. Let's pull him out slowly. Hoarder. He appeared in the Filmation cartoon series about She-Ra, Princess of Power, and he will be the main nemesis of She-Ra and her rebellion. He represents a Horde empire that's a very vast empire and conquered so many worlds and kept so many worlds and so forth. But in this particular interpretation, Hordak has an older brother who is actually the supreme leader of the Horde empire, and that would be this fellow. His name is Hoarder Prime. He is the most supreme of the supreme leaders of the entire empire, and his brother is second in command. So I'll put the two brothers side by side. You can tell that there is some resemblance between them, especially the face and the heads and so forth, but I believe that the one on the left appears a bit older looking, which would kind of make sense. And he's more of a cybernetic cyborg kind of character. So there we go. That's the two brothers, the two who are in charge. Now, the second in command to Hordak, who is an advisor and appeared in all the episodes of She-Ra cartoon series, is this lady here. She's an exclusive, or was an exclusive in one of the previous years for this line, and her name is Shadow Weaver. To all of you fans out there, you know exactly who I'm talking about. She's a very sought after figure, and her price went insanely high lately, but I was able to get mine due to subscribing one single time back in the day. So she comes with a magic wand and a book of dark magic, and she was the one who put the spell on Adora, He-Man's twin sister, to make her join the Horde. So that's one of the ladies who serve in the Horde Empire, and we'll cover two more known ones. This one right here is Scorpia. She's very well known from She-Ra cartoons, and she would try numerous times to stop She-Ra or to even defeat her in a single combat. And she would be more like a captain of the troops. And she's obviously half human, half mutant, because her arms are actual real scorpion claws and so forth. And she even has a tail of a scorpion. And one of her weapons is this crossbow that's shaped like a scorpion. She appears to be rather smart, although she does messes up her missions sometimes. And her partner in crime, who equally causes trouble, is Katra, the lady on my right hand side. She is also known from the Filmation cartoon series that she would also be there to try and stop She-Ra at any cost, and she always loses that fight. Now, Katra has the ability that when she pulls this red mask above her eyes, when she puts it over her face, it will help her transform into a big, nasty looking panther. And she would use that ability to try and crush and destroy her enemies. But when she deals with She-Ra, that transformation never really makes any difference. So, this is the two of them, the very well known captains of the Horde Guard and such, and known characters to many out there who knew the series. Anyway, now we're gonna move to some of the other members. Just a moment, please. Okay. Now we have a very unusual looking guy who belongs to the Horde Empire, and he existed in the vintage toy line as well, and his name is Mosquito. You will probably guess why he has a name like that, because he pretty much looks like a mosquito, a mutated mosquito, in a human size. He comes with a laser gun, and his main power is that he would suck the blood with his nose of a sort, mosquito nose, and drain you of any energy and power you may have in order to defeat you. Now, the vintage version of this fellow would look exactly the same, but he had an action feature which this one doesn't have. When you pretend like he's sucking blood from an enemy, you would have a button at the back, which doesn't exist in this version, that when you press that button, you could literally pump a red liquid that resembles blood right in his chest here, which would be a very neat looking action feature. It's a pity that, again, due to the cost, Mattel was not able to replicate that same feature. But you can tell that the sign does remain red, like blood. Then we have the final lady I forgot to talk about, that also serves in the Horde and appeared in a few episodes of She-Ra cartoon. Her name is Octavia. She is a woman octopus, a female octopus mutant. She is in the charge of literally Horde navy troops, or naval troops, or if you want to call them Hoarder Marines. She would be the one to lead the troops there in the name of Hordak, and she would become coming armed with the very big long tentacles and a crossbow that looks like an octopus. And she is quite a formidable enemy to She-Ra every time they faced each other. This fellow also belongs to the Horde, but the problem with him is he never existed in any of the toy lines and he never appeared in any of the cartoon series. He was invented during the time when Mattel proposed to make 6 unique characters to celebrate 30th anniversary of the He-Man franchise. So this one was created to supposedly belong to Hordak group, and you can tell that he belongs to the Horde because of his emblem on the belt, which shows Hordak's face. And this fellow was supposed to be an ex-friend of Trapjaw who serves in Skeletor's forces. And actually the two of them turned enemies because Trapjaw betrayed them. They were both bounty hunters. That's the made-up biography of this character. And during that betrayal, the Edward Scissorhand lookalike here lost powers. And he lost his hands as well, which were then replaced in the Horde by these cybernetic enormous scissor hands. And he's been serving Horde faithfully ever since. Now we have a bushy fellow who may or may not need a haircut at some point. This is Grizzlor. Obviously, the influence came from a grizzly bear, I would assume, when this character was created. He appeared numerous times in the She-Ra cartoon and in the vintage toy line. And he would be one of the known warriors of Hordak. He possesses enormous strength, but not very much brain, unfortunately, so he's not very bright, but he does have the mass and the strength to carry out things. And his equivalent would be Beastman from Skeletor's forces. So the two of them are very much the same kind of characters. Very strong, but not very bright. But they have their good days, I guess. Now, this character here is a very unique one, and this one is called Notlock. Now, Notlock is the kind of character that appeared, again, he appeared in the She-Ra cartoon and in the vintage toy line, and he looked pretty much the same. This is just a slight upgrade of the same toy. He would be able to take all these body pieces, including the head. This entire structure can be taken apart. And the main thing is you could create many different creatures using his body parts. And you can create anything you want, let your imagination run wild. So he serves in the Horde as a scientist who does experiments for the Horde and creates all sorts of nasty creatures, usually out of innocent victims. And he used to be human. And he used to do experiments in Eternia. And one time, in order to escape from prison for his crimes, he mutated himself into a creature like this. He managed to escape, and he ended up serving in the Evil Horde. And he joined their forces permanently as a cybernetic scientist to carry out experiments. He is rather difficult to defeat, according to many of these comic books where he appeared in the cartoon, but there is always a way to defeat him sooner or later, and he usually carries a double blaster to be able to shoot at the front and at the back of him. Now, next in line here would be Leech. Leech is another classic member and a character from She-Ra, and a classic member of the Evil Horde. He appeared in the vintage cartoon and in the vintage toy line, and had an appearance in one episode of the 2000X He-Man cartoon series. This fellow is practically a mutated Leech. Half human, half mutant. He has a crossbow for a weapon, and you can tell he has these suction cups on his feet and the hands. Practically he's using them to suck the energy dry from any of his enemies that he attacks. And he would also come with a big rubber net, which I don't display with him. I just like him just the way he is, like this. And he proves to be one of the more valuable warriors in the Evil Horde, and an interesting character due to the fact of how he looks and the enormous mouth that he has. Now, one last figure in this bunch that I will talk about is another version of Hoarder that existed in the vintage toy line and in some of the comics, never appeared in the cartoon in this form. But this fellow here would be called Hurricane Hoarder. Now, why is he called Hurricane Hoarder? He has this cannon arm here, and you could remove these detachments that he's using to create a hurricane of a sort. And you see, without it, it's just a cannon arm that he could shoot stuff out of it. He has the feature that remained from the vintage version of him that would practically make the action feature work. Now here it's just molded, so that means the action feature will not work because it's not included, but it was molded there just to give you an idea of what that feature used to be. What would happen is that you would have about 3 different attachment pieces like these that are actually weapons of a sort. What you do is that, even in the vintage toy you would do the same. You would attach it into his cannon arm, and then by rotating the little wheel on his back, this weapon would spin and spin and spin and spin and create an impression like he's creating a mini hurricane to blow his enemies apart. And the only other difference is he would come in a golden, flashy silver, golden armor, compared to the other Hoarder, which I'm gonna show as a comparison. As you can tell, this is how they would look like. The one on the left would have a very shiny armor with no crossbow for a weapon and no cape either, or a battle staff. And the one on the right would be your classic regular type of version of how Hoarder looked most of the time. So this is just another variant of the already existing character. Which one you guys prefer, it's entirely up to you. I actually kinda like both of these, due to the fact also that I was able to find them at decent deals back in the day. So anyway, that's as far as the Snakeman and the Horde goes. In the next video I would like to talk to you about some other characters from the classics, but more about that next time. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you again next time. Thank you. Bye.